Is Dejounte Murray of the Atlanta Hawks on the move again? We're talking about that on Philadelphia 76ers Now and whether or not the Sixers should explore a trade. Before we dive into that, All-Star Maxey. That has a nice ring to it. Let's get Philadelphia's son to the All-Star game this year. Every like that we pick up on this video, one All-Star vote for Maxey. So make sure you hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. And with that, let's dive into the latest Sixers rumors and NBA trade buzz right now. So according to NBA insider Marc Stein, he reported that the Atlanta Hawks could trade former All-Star guard Dejounte Murray. Really solid player with the Atlanta Hawks, of course, started his career with the San Antonio Spurs. He wasn't traded long ago to Atlanta, and the Hawks making that move to try to give Trae Young a little bit of help. I didn't love the move at the time because too many cooks in the kitchen. You have a ball-dominant player in Trae Young who will chuck from 30, 35 feet, and then you have another ball-dominant player in Dejounte Murray. But this is a player that I really like with how he plays offensively, but also really good defensive guard. Here's the report from Marc Stein, and then we'll get to some numbers. I'll share some of my thoughts coming up on the show as well. Multiple teams consulted in Orlando believe that the Hawks will explore their trade options with Dejounte Murray over the next 6 weeks, going in to the February 8th NBA trade deadline. That's the important date to kind of keep in mind here. It's going to be a little bit after the Super Bowl, or at least going into the Super Bowl, just like it was last year. And that's the date that you want to keep in mind because for the Sixers team, you saw how they played on Christmas. And without Joel Embiid, he's the league MVP up to this point, they're simply not the same squad. You have to be concerned with Joel Embiid's injury history, considering what has happened to him almost every year of his NBA career. And when you watch the Sixers against the Heat, you also looked at a team and you saw a team that looks to be one guy short. Now, for me, I like a two-way player, OG Anunoby, at that wing spot. I think you win NBA titles nowadays by being strong at that wing position. The Sixers are in a good spot. You have Tyrese Maxey, you have Joel Embiid. If you're able to get that two-way wing, I think it fortifies this team a lot. Dejounte Murray is an interesting option, though. He's not a wing, he is a guard, but he does help you on the defensive end of the floor. You look at his numbers over the last 4 years going into this year. 20.5 points per game last year, 6 dimes, solid rebounder, very good defensive player, as we've talked about. Steal and a half per game last year, 56.4% from the field. And those numbers, very identical the year before that as far as scoring, but even better with the assists when he was playing with San Antonio. That's obviously a team that he was able to have the basketball a little bit more with, because with San Antonio, you didn't have to worry about the Trae Young issue of him being ball dominant too. So because of that, the assist numbers went up, rebound numbers went up because he was asked to do a little bit more, 2 steals per game, and the field goal percentage at 46.2. The previous 2 seasons, you can see that Murray has been an ascending player for quite some time. And when you think about his age, he's still only 27 years old. Little bit of an issue, the 3-point numbers, 34% for his career. But this year, he's actually having the best 3-point shooting season with volume of his career. This year, he's taking 6.2 3-point attempts. That's a career high, and he's connecting on about 37.5% of those opportunities. He's quietly had a very solid season this year, but because the Hawks are kind of a lackluster, mediocre team, and the fan base doesn't even care about that squad unless they're in the playoffs, and a lot of the attention goes to Trae Young, people haven't realized how good of a season that Dejounte Murray is having. You look further at some of the numbers this year. Once again, he's right around that 20-point mark. The assist numbers pretty good because a lot of those do go to Trae Young. Rebounding numbers have gone down. Again, usage rate down too, though, so context matters, and almost 46% from the floor. So with that, we pop up our poll question. You get in the shoes of the recently extended Daryl Morey. Do you want the Sixers to trade for Dejounte Murray? Y for a yes, N for a no. You let us know. What Murray does well, let's pivot to that next because our analysis, our scouting, it's top-notch here on YouTube. That's why you subscribe. He's a great defender, really long arms, so he's able to get in the way of passing lanes with deflections. That forces steals. That forces turnovers. What does that in turn do? Leads to buckets on the other end of the deck. Solid playmaker too and ball handler who can get slippery, getting in between defenders, getting past defenders because he's explosive, he's fast. He can also create his own shot because of that. And he's been this steadily improving three-point shooter. Now earlier I told you, he's an elite defender. So next, let's focus on the defense, but let's also focus on probably the greatest concern that I have with him and the greatest concern that you might have with Dejounte Murray. It's the shooting. Murray's accomplishments. All defensive second team, 2017-2018. He was the NBA steals leader with 2 per in 2021 and in 2022. The defensive field goal percentage, all shots, 46.9%, three-pointers, 37.4%, two-pointers, 53%, less than 10 feet around the rim, 55.5%, greater than 15 feet, 38.1%. So you look at some of those numbers right there, all lower than the NBA average. And when I say he's a good defensive player, I think a lot of the defensive instincts really stand out to me. Anticipatory ability to really play that passing lane and to steal the basketball, to get his hands in there and poke the rock loose. As far as him keeping defenders in front of him, yeah, he's a little bit shorter, so he's not going to be that elite wing defender of an OG Anunoby. He is 6'5", 180 pounds, but 180 pounds. So when I say he's a little bit smaller, I guess I shouldn't say shorter, but smaller, sometimes other players who are a little bit larger than him are able to stick that shoulder down, and they're able to hit that step back, or they're able to body him a little bit. But again, with the steals, with him kind of being a pest, I like that defensive style. I imagine Nick Nurse does as well. He's a versatile defender that this team could certainly need and use. The three-point shooting numbers, let's take a look at those. Overall, as I said, 37.5%. And those numbers have gone up throughout his career, and that's a good sign because he's been steadily improving on that. 2020, 2021, he was at 31.7%. Following year, just shy of 33. Last year, 34. This year, 37. What I like about that, it's coming on a career high, 6.2 attempts. When he was a rookie, he was taking a half three a game. That was what the average was there. So that kind of goes to show you there that he's gotten a lot more confidence over time as his career has been able to progress in letting it fly. And unlike Ben Simmons, he's gotten in the lab to work on one of his flaws. And I might not go as far as to say it's developed into a strength, but you look at some of the ascending numbers right here, it's turned into a stronger element of his game, and 37%, that'll play with the volume there. My take, while he might not be the quote-unquote elite shooter, you looked at the catch-and-shoot numbers a little bit earlier that we popped up, he's solid, he's improving, he's still young, and when you pair that with really, really solid defense, I do think that Dejounte Murray is a great fit for the Sixers team. So I want you to rate his fit on Philadelphia because it's better than a Zach LaVine. It's better than some of the other players that could be available going into that aforementioned trade deadline. Scale it for me from 1 to 10. Coming up next, the big question. How could the Sixers land him? Because the asking price is said to be very, very high for Dejounte Murray. Before we get to that, today's show, sponsored by Factor, still running this excellent deal. 50% off with the code NBAChat50. And with us set to flip the page to 2024, this holiday season and entering the new year, you might be looking for quality, tasty, nutritious, flavorful meals to fuel you up on jam-packed days. Well, Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal delivery service, can help you eat well for breakfast, lunch, and dinner with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals that are delivered straight to your door. You're going to save time, my people, and my real ones. You're going to stay on track with your healthy lifestyle, all while tackling your holiday to-dos. My running streak, past 221 days. I'm trying to beat my previous one of 300 days. I need to be able to eat quality food so I'm feeling my best, and I'm able to do that with Factor, and I was able to get 50% off. So do the same. Factormeals.com/NBA Chat 50. All of these meals, quality ingredients that I'm really, really strict about. You heat them up, you enjoy them. Takes very little time, and everything prepped and cooked to perfection. Here's what a potential trade could look like, by the way, for Dejounte Murray. Sixers receiving Dejounte Murray, Patty Mills. A little bit of salary filler right there, and Murray did recently sign a contract extension. Marcus Morris, Jaden Springer, KJ Martin. On the way to Atlanta, and producer Chip and I were saying, we kind of like what Marcus Morris has been able to bring to this team. A little bit of size, playing the 4, playing the 5. He can stick on the wing. Toughness mentally for this team that they kind of lost in losing P.J. Tucker, but they get more of an offensive player than P.J. Tucker and Marcus Morris. So that would be a tough loss right there. And for a player like Murray, you're talking about probably 2 first-round picks. You have them now at your disposal, thanks to that James Harden trade, 2026 and 2028 from the Clippers. Would you make this trade right here? We'll make it a little bit bigger on the screen. We'll pop the question up as well. A for accept or D for decline. Why the Atlanta Hawks, I think, would do it right now, even with the better coach, 12-18 on the year. They actually got off to a pretty good start. They've been awful over the last couple of weeks. And the Murray Trae Young backcourt, it just hasn't been amazing. You have a good player in Dejounte Murray. You have an awful and unwilling defender in Trae Young. That's an issue. And you could use, if you're Atlanta, some of those young players and picks to kind of retool a little bit and maybe get a better fit around Trae Young. Why the Sixers would do it, conversely on the other side, is that Murray is only 27. He's on a pretty solid contract for the player that he is and under team control. And he provides some of that versatility and that skill set that I really find appealing. His contract, as we just said, it is pretty affordable, and he's under team control for the next few years. That's good for you if you want him as a building block. It's good if you want to flip him at some point if it doesn't really work all that well. $17+ million this year, goes up to just under 25 next year. Year after that, under 27, just under 29, and then $30+ million, but that's a player option there at 2027, 2028. So that's a really affordable contract for the player that you're getting. It's affordable for you to maintain that cap flexibility, and you still have a lot of money that you can use next offseason. Or again, if you want to trade him to a different team, that's a pretty appealing contract right there for the acquiring organization. Chase, what would the lineup be with Dejounte Murray? This is what we're thinking here. He's already playing shooting guard with Atlanta because Trae Young is bringing the rock up, but you could run kind of a dual point guard system. We know that Maxey is comfortable playing off ball, and Murray isn't a player who has to be a microwave scorer like a Zach LaVine to take a bunch of shots away from Tyrese Maxey. So your backcourt here is Maxey and Murray. And you go into a Christmas game without Joel Embiid, where Tobias Harris, to his credit, goes off, and you were clearly missing the league MVP. If you're without Embiid, you have a player like Dejounte Murray. It helps fill a little bit of that void of Embiid averaging 30-plus points per game this year, 44 December. You're able to supplant that with about 20 points, maybe more, from Dejounte Murray. You have Batum and Oubre at that small forward spot. This is a pretty good defensive lineup right here. You got a lot of length, too. A lot of good athleticism. This also allows you to bring De'Anthony Melton off the bench. De'Anthony Melton, love him. Dog. He's got that pit bull inside him with that classic meme that we always see floating around. But he's better suited coming in off the bench, and that's what he's always been. Dejounte Murray isn't going to demand the basketball, but he is a useful and skillful ball handler, and he gives you that really solid defender that the Sixers team could certainly need and you can put him on some really solid guards who are twitchy and fast. He has that length. He has that height. Doesn't have necessarily the weight to stick with some of those wings, but he can at least help you there. And then you're kind of absorbing having a bad defender that you have right now with Tobias Harris. If you enjoyed today's show, I'll tell you this, producer Chip, he's been crushing it, helping out, put together some of these shows, and I think the content has been absolutely superb. And if you agree, Real One Roll Call, hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. And as you venture down there to like the video, make sure you subscribe to the channel, because this is what we do. This is the standard right here. Entertaining, informative, consistent Sixers coverage where you have a voice and you have a platform as a fan.